Namaskar. In our ongoing series on Pages of History, we have with us Rajesh Govindarajulu, and we're going to be talking today about a very, very interesting topic. That is how the Cholas, especially Rajaraja, followed by Rajendra Chola, the first one, and how they actually expanded their empire. But that expansion was not just random. There was a purpose behind that, and Rajesh is going to talk to us about that, the angle in which they looked at things and how trade really prospered under them. It was not just trade, it was just the way they went about their conquests. We're going to talk about Sree Vijaya also, that is modern day Indonesia. Perhaps that is the time when Bali became so Hindu. We don't know the exact story for that, but today we're going to talk about the Chola kings, their purpose of expansion. Their administration was par excellence. Rajaraja had very detailed administrative records of how the land that was conquered was administered. Today we are going to hear more about the other angles. Rajesh ji, namaskar and welcome to PGurus channel.
Namaskaram. So happy to talk about the great rulers Rajaraja and his son Rajendra. Rajaraja was perhaps born towards the tail end of the first half of the 10th century, around 946 AD, and lived until 1014, they say. And Rajendra was born around 971 and passed away in the year 1044. The great scholar who won the epigraphy award, we should remember him, Sethuraman of Raman and Raman Kumbakonam, had undertaken enormous visits to a number of places and read out the inscriptions. With the aid of mathematics and other modern tools, he has helped us to reconstruct a portion of the history. Of course, we'll have to remember Tamil Tata, 𝗣𝗚𝘂𝘆 Iyer, then 𝗚𝗚𝑁𝑒𝑒𝑙𝑎kanṭha Shastri, and so many others. But the work of Sethuraman is really seminal. And when we look at the 𝗍𝗂𝘗𝑇𝑖s, or the prashastis of the rulers, to begin with, say for example, Rajarajas began with the words 𝗤𝗏𝗏 𝗍𝗚. Then when you look at it later, the 𝗍𝗂𝘗𝑇𝑖 becomes bigger. So with every conquest, every achievement, the 𝗍𝗂𝘗𝑇𝑖 gets added. So when we go through the 𝗍𝗂𝘗𝑇𝑖s in various places and in various forms, we understand the progression of the empire and the progression of the emperor as a leader, commander and a statesman.
One question, Rajesh, just for our viewers, those of us who may not be able to remember when the Chola Empire really started. It started, I think, around 850 AD?
Around 850 AD, Vijayalaya was the first ruler, and his son Aditya the first was the second ruler, who started off in 875. He conquered the Kongu country, and around 907 came Parantaka the first, who was the one who laid the golden roof for the Chidambaram temple, and he ruled for 48 years.
Funny you should mention that, because I have done an episode on Chidambaram. I've already talked about this. Please go ahead.
So his great grandson was Rajaraja Chola the Great, who came in between 985 and 1014. So the Cholas were very clear that the economic might and the military might will have to be balanced dynamically. They understood that without which there will not be a balance in the empire. A lot of people keep talking about the wealth of India, the wealth of China, the share of India and China in global trade, and how that in 1800 it was 18%, and 100 years later it became 1.8% of international trade because of foreign invasions. Lala Lajpat Rai has written a book in 1917, published in USA, about the loot and the plunder of India by the English. Now let us go back about 1,000 years. Start looking at the Bay of Bengal. Start looking at China. Start looking at Vietnam, Cambodia. Start looking at Malaysia, Singapore and the Indonesian islands. They were very wealthy, very prosperous, and a lot of kingdoms like Sree Vijaya, the Sailendra Empire they talk about. So many kingdoms, empires, small and big, came, thrived, prospered because of the wealth that they handled as a consequence of international trade. And India was well connected to all of them. And the Bay of Bengal that we see today can be called as the Mediterranean of the East. When you look at the Mediterranean Sea, with the northern part of Africa, Palestine and Arabia, Greece, and until the Rock of Gibraltar, you look at the patch which has given enormous exchanges for the Romans and the Greeks, and then they're coming to India and going back. This is the sea route because India was always locked on the other sides thanks to the Himalayas. So the Cholas were trying to identify spots where commerce can improve for them. So when you look at their war path, it starts somewhere from 𝗠𝗚𝙗𝘆 in the south, and when they go up into the north, perhaps they went deep into Bengal, southern Maharashtra, some parts of Chhattisgarh, Orissa, of course they had to run through that, and Jharkhand, of course. So they fought several battles and captured key commercial routes and also understood the importance of the products and services that were being offered by various locations and stations, and capture of the defeat of the Palas, 𝗤𝙧𝙤𝘀𝘆, if you call Rajendra. That was a precursor to some of his greater achievements in the ASEAN region. The intelligence that he picked up while his army was on these routes, and the wealth that he could amass, and the tributes that he could stagger into the Chola Empire, helped him to further his military and commercial interests, and this made him a great emperor. And the Chola influence was huge. Not that Indians had not been there. We've had exchanges for a very, very long period of time. Like, we've had a Pallava emperor who came from the ASEAN region. He came and ruled here. They say he came in as a small boy and he ruled for a long time in the 8th century. And you can find silver and gold coins belonging to dynasties scattered all over. But nevertheless, the military supremacy, the shattering of the navies of the enemy countries, the flotillas that were taken by the Cholas, the power of the mercantile community and the power of the Indian Navy, and the manner in which they built ships, where they ensured that corrosion will not take place because of metal pieces they tied. They used ropes and other things to reduce the impact of corrosion. And the facilities which were made available in the ships, like drinking water, food, etc. When we look at all that, it would be very, very interesting. You could probably produce a full series of stories just only on the ships which sailed through the Bay of Bengal, with the sail, with the oars, with the army, with the navy, with the smaller ships, and the merchants going along with them, the risks that they took, the time that they took to go and come back. It was not a taboo to go abroad and come. We have built temples all over. There are temples from 4th, 5th century in the Thai region or the Vietnam region if you go and see. There are a number of people who have done research and produced papers on them. Dr. Nagaswamy has done phenomenally well. Please read him. So the idea of Rajendra Chola was to increase the wealth of the people of his kingdom. And this was achieved through trade, through duties and levies which came in from the profits that were accrued, and this money was used for the construction of temples also. The temples were like banks and cultural centers. When you go and look at the big temple, it was like a big bandaram, a big treasury where paddy and gold were there. So why did Rajendra go until Bengal? Not only to capture or to defeat, and not only to bring back the waters of Ganga and do a 𝗣𝗚𝘃𝘆 for himself on the banks of Godavari and later to build 𝗤𝙧𝙤𝘆 It was also to acquire the know-how, the expertise, the manpower, the inside information and the intellectual capital that would help him and his armies and his merchants to fan out into the ASEAN region and become major influencers. That was the objective of Rajendra. When you look at later day conquests of the Europeans, a pound of pepper which was bought, say, perhaps for a rupee in the Spice Islands or a nutmeg or something, could be sold for 10,000 rupees in the respective countries. So this must have perhaps existed for a long period of time. Today, when we look at globalization, we are looking at cost of products and services. In a non-globalized world, there were opportunities which were huge in terms of finance, which could be taken advantage of. And that was the reason for Rajendra's large-scale conquest of the eastern coast, wherein he starts looking at Vengi, the eastern Chalukya dynasty, safeguards that kingdom, then goes into Orissa, then into Bengal, then he fans westward in order to protect his movement this side. So the numerous battles that they fought are very, very interesting. While some of the battles on the western side with the Chalukyas would look different, the eastern side battles were more focused on commercial targets more than taking over things militarily. And perhaps this was the reason why the Cholas missed out on Mahmud of Ghazni, who was looting and plundering on the western side. People have always wondered and discussed and debated as to why they left it. Perhaps they were getting ready financially to face, getting ready militarily to face the western onslaught. This is an unexplored concept, but yet the trade largesse which they were looking at. Ayahole, if you go and see in Karnataka, Ayyappozhil, Ainurvar, all these traders are all connected. And very freely they went abroad, they came back. Some of them stayed back in those places, and sometimes they brought people here. If you read, Sandilyan's Kadalpura, you will find one beautiful ship coming there. It is so beautifully described, with some special facilities. That is again, based on actual facts and stories connected with the large Pallava and the mighty Chola navies. Perhaps at one point of time, the Chola navy must have been the best in the world.
One question, Rajesh. I have seen a YouTube video, and I can't find it again. This is by a Western researcher, where he makes the argument that Rajaraja Chola, by the way, before he became Rajaraja Chola, his name was Arulmozhivarman. Those of you who have seen Ponniyin Selvan 1 and 2, you will know exactly what I'm talking about. So Rajaraja Chola, this person says that he was perhaps the greatest Tamil king to have ever lived. But we think that Rajendra probably had an equal claim to that.
We have to, admit this fact. See, Rajaraja was born around 946. He became the emperor in 985. He was almost 40. And Rajendra was born around 971. So when his father became the emperor, he must have been a young teenager getting trained. And you can find records of Rajendra on horseback from the 7th regnal year of Rajaraja, which happens to be 992 AD. So a lot of work conducted and done by Rajaraja was in the company of his great son Rajendra. The greatness of the father, perhaps slightly, the vision of the father, perhaps slightly has overshadowed the achievements of the son. And when you even look at, Rajendra's achievements, he was like in his 40s, maybe even older than his father when he became the emperor, or the time that his father became the emperor, when he became the emperor. So you have to give due credit to his own sons. So many of the achievements belonging to the period of Rajendra, 1014 to 1044, after 1020, after 1025, a lot of it would go to his sons also, Rajadiraja and second Rajendra. There was next to none. Rajaraja, Aditya Karikala, Rajaraja, Rajendra, then his sons Rajadiraja and Rajendra II. These powerful monarchs between 971, because Aditya Karikala was the heir apparent when he was assassinated, from around 970 till about 1070, the 100 years is the,
golden
period of the Cholas. And in that period, Rajendra occupies a long time. About 22 plus 30, 52 years while he was on horseback until he passed away. 50 years of an active role of Rajendra. And that was really seminal and it was very, very important. So he was known as, 𝗤𝙬𝙬𝘀𝘀 Cholan. He was known as Kadaram Konda Cholan because of his conquest of territories on the other side, Malaysia, Indonesia, everything. He had perhaps traveled all around and come back also. This great warrior rightfully has been given a place in history, I think in Bombay. There is a lovely statue of him there. And if you go to the museum in Chennai, there is a nice illustration of Rajendra being celebrated after him becoming 𝗤𝙬𝙬𝘀𝘀 Cholan. And the great capital, new capital city on the northern side of the Kaveri, I think, was constructed largely with the resources that were accumulated after the war. And Rajendra, being the subtle man, made the 𝗤𝙬𝙬𝘀𝘀 temple to be slightly smaller than the 𝗤𝘚𝑒श्வர temple constructed by his father. If that was bigger, that would look more like the male counterpart, and the 𝗤𝙬𝙬𝘀𝘀 temple looked more feminine. So there was victory, here there was art, culture, commerce. So between these two temples, you can see the peak of the Chola Empire from 1010 AD till such time that the 𝗤𝙬𝙬𝘀𝘀 temple was completed. That is the peak, the crescendo period of the Chola Empire. The great period is between 970 to 1070, 100 years, the Chola century, you can call them. I am grateful to you, Sree Iyer sir, for giving me the opportunity to talk about the economic might, prowess of the Chola period merchants in India and in South in particular, and their intelligence gathering methods which helped them to conquer and influence the entire ASEAN region. And now if India under Modi is trying to seek a space along with the ASEAN countries, I think this foundation was laid long before by none other than 𝗤𝙬𝙬𝘀𝘀 Cholan, Rajendra Chola the Great.
Thank you, Rajesh. A couple of questions before we wind this up. One is, I think under Rajaraja or Rajendra, I don't remember, the expansion or the conquest of Sri Lanka was complete.
Under Rajaraja, it was partially complete. Under Rajendra, it was fully complete. Because there is a story connected with the ancient Pandya crown and some crown jewels, which were kept in the forests, the southern forests and the Rohana forests of Sri Lanka. So Rajendra was very particular to get back that valuable treasure to India. So he ensured that the whole of Sri Lanka was conquered, and he brought the crown jewels back, and one of his sons was made to sit as the viceroy in Madurai, and a coronation had also been done. And that part of it, the Pandyan kingdom being a very ancient kingdom, which you can find from the Puranic times almost until the 18th century. So they are there for centuries together. They are very culturally advanced. If you look at the 𝗤𝙗𝑖𝑦𝑎𝑑𝑎𝑙 Puranam, you will understand. So the Cholas, who overcame the Pandyas and who, after having also overcome the Pallavas, they felt that in the scheme of things, they should also, have the Pandya crown for eternity in their hands. It's like a big tennis player wants to win all the Grand Slams and also win the Wimbledon, whether it is clay or whether it is grass, right, lawn tennis. Similarly, the Chola emperor was very particular that this Pan-Asian empire acquired legitimacy not with their own might, not just with their commerce, but also with the return of the ancient artifacts, jewels and crowns, arms belonging to India which were placed in other countries. So they were trying to bring back the honor and prestige of India once again.
Rajesh, last question. One of the reasons why the Cholas are considered a mighty army was that they perfected the art of using elephants in the battle. How true is that?
See, in fact, the Tanjavur region is, fertile plain land, and elephants would be really not a great thing available for them. When you come to the Pandya kingdom or the Pallava kingdom, the Eastern Ghat elephants, for the Kongu rulers, the Nilgiris biosphere elephants, and for the Chera and the Pandya rulers, the Sahyadri or the Western Ghat elephants were there. But somehow these Cholas managed to capture the Kongu country. They took the elephants and they found them to be very strategic. They increased their elephant corps, and that helped them to capture a number of places. Elephants were like modern tanks. Even the Mongols dreaded the elephants when they saw them on the banks of the Indus. Alexander said to have left the country and gone because of the elephants that were found with Purushottama or Porus. Similarly, the elephants of the south, particularly the Nilgiris biosphere, which still is home to a huge population of elephants, helped the Cholas in battle. They were armed, they were trained, they were given tools. Even if you go to the library of the Maratha princes, the Saraswati Mal library to which Sarfauji was connected, Tanjavur, you'll find a book on 𝗤𝙧𝙤𝘆. It talks about the type of elephants that should be nurtured and what kind of an elephant should be brought to a temple. All this is written in this book. That book is called 𝗤𝙧𝙤𝘆. So Indians had mastered 𝗤𝙧𝙤𝘆 and they made use of these elephants to further their military ambitions. You must remember Orissa or the Kalinga Rajyam or the Odisha region had some of the best elephants. If the Cholas could pass through them and get into Bengal, to pass through a militarized state consisting of thousands of elephants, pachyderms, that surely speaks volumes about the elephant corps of the Chola Empire and the training that they had given them. And if you go near Trichy, there's a place called Ranganathapuram. There is a Shiva temple which is slightly elevated. And they say, they connected to some elephants, and there is this old temple shrine of 𝗣𝙭 𝗣𝗚 which is there. The deity is supposed to listen to you. It's nearly 40 kilometers away from Srirangam, a beautiful Agraharam. The temple itself is kind of on something, and the story is connected with the elephants.
Wow. See, elephants were were famous in the area what is like border of northern Andhra Pradesh and southern Odisha, 𝗤𝙧𝙤𝘆, right?
𝗤𝙧𝙤𝙆 title goes to them because of that. Even Chandragupta Maurya's elephant, according to Sree Iyer, the father of A.P. Venkateshwaran, they say in his book Chanakyaram Chandraguptaram, he talks about a fabulous elephant called Chandralekha. It's a story, history based on, fiction based on history, where they say it had a very long pair of tusks, where he says, and that, Chanakya comes up with the story where he says the elephant came in front of Chandragupta and offered something. And that kind of a story made people understand and think that Chandragupta was destined to rule the country. Even today, near the old Parliament House, I think you have a statue of Chandragupta thinking of the India that he was going to govern as a youngster. The statue is that of Chandragupta as a youngster. So it speaks volumes about the elephant corps and the elephant training abilities of the Cholas and how they used them to create a large empire. You look at the coastline of Tamil Nadu, it is 1,076 kilometers. The coastline of Andhra Pradesh is almost 1,000, 2,000. Then you'll have to go into Orissa, hundreds of kilometers more. Then into Bengal, and if you look at places like Chittagong, which are on the other side, probably 3,000, 3,500 kilometers you have to manage with your elephant corps, with your cavalry and infantry. That speaks volumes about the abilities of the Chola elephant corps.
And in all these things, they had the supply line going all the way back to Tanjavur, right?
100%, because Tanjavur was a delta region. So they had people who were producing medicines, producing arms, and produce, food for these people. And when they passed through Andhra Pradesh and Orissa and Bengal, these are all rice growing places. So they found paddy sufficiently. So they were able to manage. Had they gone on the other side, they probably would have faced some challenges with food habits.
Yes, indeed. And we'll be continuing to bring you some very interesting pages from history. And thank you so much, Rajesh.
Thank you so much for having me once again with you. And I'm looking forward to a number of fruitful interactions.
And viewers, please, by way of comments, share your thoughts on this and also share this video amongst your friends and family. Do subscribe to us if you have not already done so. Thank you.